Hi, I hope that me talking about these godforsaken trash games won't make you despise the channel, but I'm afraid that I'm back with another 3. Ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, but our lovely beast of an 8-bit system, so C64, kept getting games in 1993 even. So did Amiga, and even it was on its last legs and ready to soon face 1994's Commodore's bankruptcy. So, to celebrate the giant falling, as an exception to how I usually do things here, I will cover this particular game for both systems at the same time. Especially that despite the astronomical power difference between them, it's nearly equally as shitty on both. I mean, Amiga's version is just the smelliest of all shit nuggets, so the score is taken from that version, but C64 is honestly not far behind. So, Fist Fighter, an excellent title for the SM adult movie from the early 2000s, late 90s, is actually nothing of the sort. Nope, it's way worse. It's a terrible Street Fighter 2 knockoff, focusing on everything but not the gameplay. Now, if you ever had a chance to play Street Fighter 2 on PC or even to some degree on Amiga or C64, then you know how bad these ports were. All equally missed opportunities and all for many different reasons. But all of them actually managed to squeeze in all the fighters, their moves, stages and in varying degrees sounds and sprite animations. This, however, seemingly gunning to compete with said Street Fighter 2 somehow managed to end up being even worse. Much worse. But let's start at the beginning. The International Martial Arts Tournament to find the best fighter, the toughest of the tough guys, the best mustache sporter of 1993 and most of all the handsomest of the heartbreakers was held, and believe it or not, but only 5 challengers managed to get through the knockout stages. Well, 8 on the Amiga version, but other than that both games are identical. And don't worry if you've only access to the C64 port, cause whether it's 5 or 8, it's irrelevant, all of those fighters are basically the same, and the game is no better on any of the machines. So yeah, these few combatants clash against each other in one of the 3 locations, Egypt, Japan and the US, and only one of them can be crowned the winner, the master, the ultimate warrior, nay, the fisting fighter. I mean fist fighter. And it kinda makes sense cause all of them have the identical set of moves differing in nothing. All 5 or 6 base attacks are carbon copies of each other for all of them, and all that they really have that's unique to them are the looks and special attacks, of which each has one. Yes, one special and spectacular move. You can only imagine how playable is this one, with such a selection of fiery, explosive and deadly attacks, right? Yep, it's a hoot. I mean, if you have a friend you wanna end a particular friendship with and don't know how, invite them in, fire this bad boy up, and I can pretty much guarantee that 5 to 10 minutes in, you'll be friends no more. Because who would be so cruel to make someone else play this monstrosity? Not a friend, that's for sure. What's worse, those super special attacks we've been talking about are not even well balanced. And the characters whose are ranged have a considerable advantage on the others. But whatever, after all, hardly any fighting game is perfectly balanced, right? And it's not all about moves even, I mean, when it comes to fighters, it's the fun factor and fluid gameplay that's the king. And well, I'm unhappy to report that obviously Fist Fighter fails there too. The controls are slow to respond, the characters move as if they were holding in a fart and walking in the mat at the same time. And yet, when they get hit and dramatically fall, at least in the C64 version, they bounce off of the ground as if it was a bouncy castle or at least 5-6 mattresses and not dirt. In Amiga's outing they don't, but that one has a whole slew of extra terrible issues to make up for it. So for one, despite looking better and having 3 fighters more, Amisport somehow managed to be even less playable. It's often an odd and uncontrollable mix of punches, kicks and blocks between the 2 fighters that feels as if neither of the attacks carried any weight. I mean, just look at it. The fighters look as if they were touching each other gently and not exchanging powerful attacks. I mean, I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover. I have no clue how real street fight looks like, and perhaps it is a series of delicate taps that carry on until one of the fighters gets tired and excuses himself to go home for dinner. Either way, it sure looks like it. C64's Fist Fighter is definitely more dynamic, but suffers from similar issues of having no content or staying power. Additionally, cause naturally I'm nowhere near done complaining, the CPU-controlled fighter on the Amiga seems to be cheating, and magically somehow always knowing exactly which attack you've chosen before its animation even starts playing, so they nearly always perfectly block all of them. It's like that infamous Mortal Kombat 2 cheating, but in a much worse playing, looking, sounding and controlling game. But with all the bad out of the way, let's talk about good. Cause yeah, there is something. But worry not, it won't take much of your time here, or change how I feel about this game. And it's the title screen, title tune, and to some degree, at least on C64, graphics. So yeah, it's a mess of a game desperately trying to cash in on Street Fighter 2's popularity and not worth playing at all, unless when used as a tool to upset someone, end relationships, or torture your younger siblings, which would be odd given how we're all grown-ups now. If possible, you should avoid Fist Fighter at all costs, so before we move to our next game, I'm gonna share an interesting tidbit about it with you. You know, to end Fist Fighter's section with a bang, so to speak, and I'm sure you'll find it as amusing as I did. One Dave Sowerby, a programmer of the C64 port of the game, worked with Zeppelin Games years later on a little action-packed title better known as Right to Hell Retribution, which we've covered in one of the earlier episodes of Games That Should Never Be. And both of these games should really never be. I realized that this Barbie game, or any Barbie game really, is something that aimed at a particular subset of gamers. Mainly, but not only, preteen girls that still play with Barbies. But even if that's the case, Barbie Supermodel is just a despicable cash grab, having very little respect for its potential audience, and a title that's not worth your time even if it was given away for free. And it wasn't. It was actually sold for a cool round $60 when it released. And given how much or how little quote-unquote content there is here actually, it's just amazing. Amazing that someone allowed that to happen. Especially that if you know what you're doing, the game can be completed in under 15 minutes. But whatever. In the end, it's the demand that drives the pricing up, so there either had to be a rather large demand for it, or at the very least expectations that the brand alone will sell this third. As far as I know, it didn't, so at least it got what it deserved, so being forgotten. Well, until today that is, because I've decided to resurrect this rotting corpse of a game and we're sure as hell going to be talking about it. The story here is very Barbie-like and while simple, honestly nothing to pick on. So Barbie was invited to participate in a national supermodel competition, you know, as Barbie does on every day other than Sunday, because Sunday is for mani-pedis and also a cheat day, for both, her diet and Ken. Long story, don't ask. And the winner of said competition will become one of the world's most well-known models. So naturally, our plastic-made heroine heads off to 4 competition venues in Hollywood, Hawaii, Vail and New York to prove that not only she has what it takes, but also that she is, in fact, the best. And the best she may very well be, but the game sure as hell isn't. Barbie Supermodel is composed out of 4 basically identical levels with only a slight difference to the arcade section in each of them. And slight is the right word here, cause technically you always move one way in each of these, avoiding various obstacles by slowing down, speeding up or moving up and down, and collecting items that grant points or chances. Nothing else, nothing more, it's just the way that she moves in them that changes. Said chances are for all intents and purposes your HP points, and if you run out of them by hitting anything on your way, it's an instant game over. So keep them stocked and avoid collisions. Or better yet, don't pick them up, collide with everything you can, because the sooner you die in the game, the sooner you'll be able to change it. The first arcade section, depending on the level, is Barbie driving on the road. Oh my, how creative. Barbie skating on the beach. She is a LA girl after all. Barbie walking through a ski resort. So a holiday Barbie perhaps? Or Barbie walking again, this time through the park though. I mean, the girl's gotta stay active to keep her slim and unnatural figure and proportions, am I right? Anyway, apart from this first section, what comes next throughout the game is all the same. So you are shown a magazine cover, naturally featuring Barbie posing like a boss, and you have to replicate her outfit so that it's the same, by picking the right clothes and colors. It's a glorified memory game if you haven't noticed, awarding points for correct picks. But fear not, the rest of this waste of space is also a memory game, and as bad as this first part was. After that cover scene, you are taken onto the runway practice in which you have to memorize 4 poses on the 4 runway floor positions. You know, tough stuff. I mean, how is one supposed to remember 4 things all at once? It's just impossible. So yeah, that's it. Just see it, practice and memorize. Once again, nothing more, nothing less. Then there's another arcade section, and mind you, it's as boring and uninspired as the first, maybe even more so as you're going through it again, and then another magazine cover. This time, however, you're not matching the outfit, but Barbie's hair, makeup and nails. And it too is just a matter of memorizing a few small details, which anyone over the age of 3 should be able to do with ease. Heck, I've known cats and dogs capable of remembering more than this game asks you to. My cat knows exactly what I mean with each of the faces that I make. Granted, I only have 2, stone face and I want a poo face, but he gets them, with 100% accuracy. Anyway, all this is followed by the actual runaway competition in which you must perform the exact moves you've practiced earlier, and when you're done, the game moves to the next stage, which in a typical rinse and repeat manner goes through all that once again and again until all 4 are completed and you're crowned the Barbiest of all Barbies, the queen of all Barbies even, so Bar Queen? It doesn't really sound the way I imagined that it will. Anyway, all of the endlessly repeatable stuff that you do in this terrible game is for points, so naturally you keep scoring those imaginary digits level after level, never feeling fulfilled as if you've achieved something or even had fun, cause you didn't. And no, it doesn't feel like a game at all, it feels like a series of boring micro-tortures with no real point or reason for them. And what's worse, there is no ending. I mean, there is, you get to complete the game, all 4 of its stages, but nothing waits for you at the end. There's no animation, no extended sequence with you being awarded that promised supermodel crown, nothing. The game rewards you with its title screen and a chance to waste another half an hour playing once more through it. Thanks, but no thanks. Barbie Supermodel, more like Barbie Supermoron, for buying it at all. No girl deserves to be handled this hot steaming turd and be expected to have fun with it. It's disrespectful and offensive to their intelligence. It's literally like going to a doggy park, grabbing one of the discarded already full bags from the trash, handing it to someone and then asking them to pay $60 for it. There is just no compelling experience in Barbie Supermodel. You do the 3-4 simplistic things throughout its entire run and they're not fun at all. Ninjabread Man is one of the worst 3D action games ever made. Period. I've spoken and what I said is true. Usually I would have told you not to check if what I said is correct and just trust me, but in this particular case, I dare you. Check it out, see if you can disagree after playing this garbage. Even more so, check if you can play it for any longer than 20 minutes. Anyway, Ninjabread Man is virtually the same as its two sisters, Anubis 2 and Rock'n'Roll Adventures. And when I say the same, I mean it. All that they differ in is the graphical theme. The gameplay and level layouts are the same and equally terrible in all of them, but today, however, we're not gonna be turning this family into a broken one and we'll focus on Ninjabread Man only. So sit comfortably, my dear viewers, cause this one's special. The general gameplay idea here is rather simple. You have to find and collect 8 items for the warp gate at the end of the level to open and to progress further, all the while fighting off aimlessly wandering about enemies. And they're only there to slow you down and provide something, anything for you to do in the game's devoid of anything interesting stages. So far, not that bad, right? It's not great, but not awful. I mean, it's like most other 3D action platformers out there, only that it's not. Because while these tend to introduce new concepts, mechanics, enemies or even graphical designs, you know, anything that would make you feel as if you were progressing through the adventure, Ninjabread Man doesn't even try to. Probably because there's not enough time to add anything extra, as the 3 levels it is composed of can be completed in half an hour at most. And yes, I said 3, and yes, I said half an hour. So it's another of those extra smelly turds not worth a tenth of their price. In fact, this one should probably be given away for free along with $10 to anyone who's willing to take it, as it's not worth your time, let alone money. What's most odd about it though, other than the low quality of everything it is built out of, is that despite it being released in 2005 on Windows and PS2, it got a re-release on Nintendo Wii 2 years later, virtually unchanged, and no one seemed to care how crap of a game it was 2 years prior. And the devs did jack shit to change anything. They just ported it, slapped a new price on it, and sold it as a game for kids. So you know, Nintendo-friendly title and whatnot. Anyway, what is Ninjabread Man all about, you may wonder? Well, not about fun, I'll tell you as much. So Candyland has been prospering in peace and happiness for years, or cartoon equivalent of years, and it seemed that things will be as sweet and sticky as they've always been. When suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, and in a bad game expected manner, so without any reason and explanation, evil jelly monsters, angry bees and menacing cupcakes teamed up and attacked the land to claim it. And since in the land that known no conflict or wars, there was no candy army, you, the Ninjabread Man, saw an ungodly abomination between a ninja woman and a gingerbread man, and trust me, you don't want to imagine this forbidden interspecies love, it was a stuff of nightmares, are the only one armed and capable to save everyone. So, you do just that. You're armed with a trusty sword, powerful kick and ninja stars that happen to not look like ninja stars at all, but whatever. And you take on this challenge, crying each step of the way over the time wasted playing this capital mistake in video game design. There are a few kinds of enemies, and while they all look different, the quality of the models leaves a lot to be desired. It looks as if the aim here was to use as few polygons as possible to make the game run on potatoest of potatoes, which is ironic, as Ninjabread Man suffers from some odd and unexplained frame pacing issues from time to time, regardless what system you run it on. Anyway, I get that they wanted it to be quote-unquote enjoyed on all configurations, but what I don't get is why does it also have to be unplayable while already looking rather dated. What's worse, your attacks carry no weight, and very often during combat the game randomly decides not to play out animations telegraphing that your hits land. So you never really know if your hits registered or not. You know, fun stuff really, if you enjoy surprises. And I don't. Especially like this game, which is an equivalent of a suspicious and lit on fire paperback lying at your porch, and all you can expect from it when it burns out is an unpleasantly smelling object of questionable solidity. Unfortunately, that's not all that's awful about Ninjabread Man, because the controls are terrible too. They are centered around the right side of the keyboard and spread between the arrow keys, Control, Enter and Backspace. Yes, these three keys in particular, and let me tell you, if you don't have a carpal tunnel syndrome yet, you're sure as hell going to get it with this one. Ninjabread Man would make your hands look like deformed claws, forever bent in the odd, uncomfortable and nightmare-worthy shape. They would end up like that, but as we've established already, half an hour is at most you'll spend at it, as you will either manage to finish the entire game before, or give up. Most likely both at once. The star of the show here, however, and the most annoying thing about it, has got to be the camera. Which for the most part seems okay, not great but not terrible either, until you run into a wall or have to do a sudden 180-degree turn, then all sorts of things happen, and none of them would make it a better game. Now, after seeing Barbie and this, you may begin to wonder how can someone ask for money for a game that takes less than half an hour to complete. Well, it's elementary, my dear Watson, because it doesn't take half an hour to complete. The devs added 3, I don't know, let's call them New Game Plus modes, so you have to suffer through the same boring as repeatable stages a few times more to 100% it. And the only things that change between them are so superficial that I bet it took the devs at most 5 minutes to make all those adjustments. So, in the first extra mode, you have to complete the levels same as usual while also collecting small candies. Wow, what a change, it sure deserves its own separate game mode, right? The second is even worse, as it's literally the basic game but with added timer, and not a very restrictive one at that. And finally, third extra mode is identical to second, so the candies, but there's less of them and they're better hidden. And this is how a 30-minute long terrible monstrosity that this game is morphed into a 2-hour long one, filled with many yawns, couple of naps you'll know that fall into involuntarily, dehydration from all the crying over what your life became if you have to play this third, and an overwhelming feeling of loss. Of time, money and your brain cells that are surely in the process of rotting after going through this despicable release 4 times. Every time I make a video in this series, I hope that at least one of the games will be semi-decent or enjoyable for reasons other than irony or shock value. And yet, they're always incredibly bad, and without fail no less. So, fingers crossed, next time maybe? If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below, and maybe share it too, it helps more than you know. If you didn't, then don't naturally. It was fun talking to you as usual, and I'll see you, or more accurately, talk to you very soon.